quickly moving to today's case, we've got a case called franchising gyms, and all these cases that we do, they come straight from our case library, which has over 600 cases. So over like 200 MBB cases in addition to all of the other kind of firm styles that you would expect for consulting. And so just check out the case library. The case library comes included in a couple of programs. Number one is the All Access Pass, which is our all digital program. And then number two is Black Belt. So if you join Black Belt, you will get access to this in addition to everything else that comes with that. And then Super Prep is the last program. So the case library comes with that as well. Lastly, if you're a student at a partner school that carries a management consultant subscription, you also have access to the case library. And so you can access that from your management consultant account. Just go to the case interview prep tab and you'll find a link to the case library. And you can filter by firms, by function, by industry, by difficulty, by case type. There's so many options for you. If you're not sure if you're at a partner school or if you're at a school you know it's not a partner, but you'd be interested in kind of figuring out what that looks like or passing the info onto your career services office, send us an email. I want to put that in the chat, but the email is university@managementconsulted.com. So go ahead and reach out if you're not sure if you had a student partner, and we'll get you sorted. Wonderful. Okay. Next up, excited to introduce our interviewer for today, Juliane Hoss, calling in from, I don't know, Juliane, where are you calling in from?
I'm calling you from Johannesburg.
Johannesburg. Okay.
It's never really clear with me.
Never know with you. You're all over the Eastern Hemisphere. Well, great. Well, Julianne's been with us for a number of years, one of our well-loved Bain coaches, and she would love to work with you, not just for Bain interviews. All our coaches are cross-trained across firm and interview styles. And so, fun fact, Julianne is also one of the project leaders the upcoming strategy sprint. And so if you like what you hear today, go ahead and join that. You can also book coaching with Julianne through Black Belt Super Prep, or you can just purchase an hour or two standalone. Okay. With that, Julianne, would love to get to know you just a little bit. Can you give us a quick overview of your background and maybe like, one snippet of how you like to work with your clients?
Of course. Great. Lovely being here. So I'm a psychologist that turned into management consultant. I started studying my master's in psychology, then I did a master's in management, and then I joined Bain. And I always love to combine those two worlds, really understanding what we need on an individual basis to get the best out of us, but also strategically what that means. When I work as a therapist or coach, I often work with the strategic room and the emotional room. And I find it's also quite helpful in case preparation. Strategically, how do you really nail down those case skills? And emotionally, how do you get yourself ready? Because oftentimes, when something is pulling us back, like self doubt in the interview, not only does it weigh us down emotionally, it also distracts and therefore our performance declines. So I really like to look at both. And I also like to look at what is already going well because no one's going to hire you by not making mistakes. You also need to stand out. So we're trying to iron out the point of improvements and we're trying to make you shine in what is going really well. And today for the case, I will switch between being an interviewer and a coach. So I've brought my coach head. This is my farmer's hat because in South Africa I do have a farm, which is a retreat center for people to come. So whenever I'm wearing the hat, then you know I'm in coach mood and I'm giving feedback. Whenever I take it off, then I'll be the interviewer for today's interview. All right, shall we start?
Love it. Thank you so much, Julianne. Before we start, just love to hear quickly from our guest, Josh. Josh, do you mind just telling us, right, where are you calling in from? Where are you going to school? And maybe like a little bit of about what your recruiting process has looked like so far.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. My name is Josh. Just started my third year at the University of California, Riverside. So I'm out of Riverside right now, a little bit southeast of Los Angeles area. So I interned at a Big Four this summer, knew I wanted to go into consulting, did some recruitment during the summer, actually interviewed with Bain, got to their final round, didn't get it. And then I'm hoping to go through full-time recruitment again next year and potentially some recruiting for boutique firms for this 2026 cycle. But just excited to be here. And yeah.
Love it. Thank you so much, Josh. Looking forward to today's session. Okay, well, hey, now's the point of the call where I switch it over, give the floor to Julianne and Josh. And so make sure you got your pencil and your paper, folks. Follow along with this case, work alongside, craft your own answers, etc. And so it's a great opportunity for some free case practice. All right, Julianne, over to you.
Great. Okay. So lovely meeting you, Josh, and also great that we have a chance to do a case together today for your interview. When we do the case, remember that you're not allowed to use a calculator or laptop. And also, I have to emphasize nowadays, please don't use AI. You can take notes at any point in time. You can pause me. You can ask questions, but no material that you've prepared before is allowed. All right. Do you have any questions before we start with the case?
Nope, ready to go.
Good, great. So this is an exciting case, long-standing client of Bain. Um, and it's a gym franchisor, and they are focusing on small gyms, so approximately 3,000 square feet, and it's just standard fitness equipment, no classes or lockers, and that's why you find those gyms mainly in local strip malls, like not the fancy places or fancy gyms, which I like to go to. That's why I picked this case. I'm a gym fanatic, but rather just the basic. But what you'll find is that they're open 24-hour per day, and the members enter the gym via an access card. So it's really built for convenience, for a quick workout. And also, staffing is really minimal at the gym, minimal to none, actually. It depends on the individual franchisee how they choose to do it. The business is growing very rapidly with recent trends in health and wellness, as we're seeing it globally, acting as strong tailwinds. Furthermore, this is expected to continue for the foreseeable future. But there is now a new competitor. They are offering similar franchising opportunities. And to make our clients' franchising opportunity more attractive, they would like your input on how the profitability of the franchises can be improved. How would you approach this problem?
Yeah, well, that sounds super interesting. Definitely a high growth, but also competitive industry in terms of the fitness world, especially now. Is it all right with you if I ask a couple questions before I get into the case?
Yes, sure.
Great. So, would I be able to understand sort of the revenue split and how that works in terms of the franchising model and how they bring in revenue from each one of these gym locations?
So I think what I know is that it's membership fees and other, but it would also be lovely if you can guide our client what to look at, because funnily enough, businesses actually don't have that much of an understanding often of their income streams or also of their profit pools. But it is memberships and other revenue streams.
Okay, good to know. And do we have a number? I know you mentioned it's primarily small gyms. Do we know approximately how many gym locations they have?
Interestingly, I don't have that number.
Okay, great. And then just one final question I have before I get into structure my approach is have they considered investing in any other criteria or other types of gyms other than these small gyms?
They haven't considered it, but they also haven't ruled it out.
Okay, good to know. Is it all right with you if I take a couple of minutes to structure my thoughts and I'll walk you through how I'm thinking about this?
Yeah, we will just take on the coach hat for a second to give you feedback in how you started the case, because the recap of the case prompt is a very, very important part when we look at the case and the case performance. What you did very well is that you showed an interest. You were excited about the case. You're saying, yes, this is interesting. Sometimes when you even bring an personal example and say, I also love the gym, or, oh, goodness, I haven't been in the gym in a while, the more conversation you have with the interviewer, the better. Because remember, we also human. We want to remember you for how you made us feel in the interview, that we had a good vibe. Otherwise, if every interview feels the same, sometimes for interviewers, as harsh as the sound, it's really difficult to differentiate who was who because they have so many interviews every week. So make sure you build a rapport. That was great. The other thing that I liked is that you were asking questions. However, Please keep in mind that when you ask in the beginning, you're only supposed to ask questions that the interviewer can answer on top of their mind, nothing that they need to look up, because then you're already getting into analysis territory. And if the interviewer follows you and gives you information, then you're jumping over the need to do a structure, and then it will feel that you're not sure how to do a structure or you are unstructured. So that is a big risk. And if the interviewer doesn't go and give you the information, then you're basically still hanging a little bit in the dark. So keep in mind only questions that the interviewer would know top of their mind about the business model, then also the definition of the business. You can ask a little bit about how they actually make money, but the granularity of the data comes later. And you can also ask anything, for example, around just generally definition of the complication, what is going wrong. And now, very important, and that's something you forgot. You need to also ask and be very clear that you are aligned with the interviewer and the case with the overarching objective. What exactly is the client in need of? What do we need to give them? What do we need to answer to them? And also, what is the criteria of success? So, an objective, if you take a market entry case, would mean should we enter this new market, yes or no? A criteria of success would be if there's sufficient revenue in the market, yes, we should enter. If you don't have the objective clear, my experience is that you will struggle in the case. You will often lose focus. You would get stuck in the detail, go down rabbit holes, and not be able to have that big picture view. Remember, consulting is all about attitude shifting. Have the big picture view at the same time be in the detail. So every successful case only can work if you have the objective clear. And that's something all consultants have in common. They focus on the objective more than anything. They actually won't even start a case without having aligned on the objective. So when you recap, please give a verbal recollection of the case to the interviewer, but not what I told you, but the situation. What is the business about? How do they make money? The complication. Why are they coming to us? What's the difficulty? And the objective as well as the criteria of success, meaning what do they need from us and how will we advise them? What's the criteria to say, hey, yes, no, or something else? And that then forms your starting point for the structure. And you, if you practice it a little bit, you will also realize how you'll become much more targeted in what you're solving for, not just fishing for a lot of information. Because just going out and saying, this is interesting, I need to know this, that's what researchers do. Consultants start by saying, what am I solving for? How will I solve this? And what do I need to know to get there? Okay? So show excitement, interest, build the rapport, ask the clarifying questions, but only what the interview knows top of their mind. Recap the case in a structure of situation, complication, objective, and criteria. Make sure you super clear and aligned with the interviewer on the objective, and use that as your starting point for the structure. That's a good start to a case. Good. Then we can continue.
Okay, great. So is it all right if I just take some time, create my structure, and then I'll walk you through how I'm approaching the problem of how to increase its profitability amidst the new competition?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that time. So when thinking about how this gym franchise can improve their profitability and remain competitive amidst this new competition, I would want to look at their existing profitability levers and what the existing profitability is, how they can improve it, as well as their competitive positioning against this new competitor. And then finally, looking at strategic improvements that they can take in order to increase that positioning. So if that sounds good, I'm just going to dive a little bit deeper into each one of those and let you know my specific thoughts.
Sounds great.
Great. So looking at these profitability levers, of course, that's going to be broken up into revenue and costs. And revenue at its base level is price times volume. But in terms of a business model of a gym, it's going to be the total members that they have times the average duration of their membership times the price that they pay per membership. So when trying to drive up that top line, which of course is also going to increase profitability, we want to look at how can we increase total membership? How can we increase duration of the membership? And can we do any price changes to potentially gain more revenue per customer, of course, depending on the price elasticity of each customer. So I'd want to look at different methods that we could have to raise each one of those parts of the revenue component and seeing how we can do that. Shifting into the cost, of course, and another important part of profitability, I want to look at each part of the value chain, see where we're incurring the most costs. So whether that be our raw materials, any import or transportation costs, lease costs that we may pay for each one of these gym locations, as well as labor costs. I know we brought up that may not be as big of a concern, so that might not be a primary focus here, but just getting an understanding of their existing profitability and a starting point and seeing which one of those levers that they can pull to bump up that bottom line. Next, shifting into competitive positioning, I would wonder a little bit more about who this competitor is. What is the size of their business? How many franchises do they own? Do they have any specific niche in the market that maybe we don't tap into? Potentially, they own martial arts studios, CrossFit training studios, really understanding where they fit into the market and where we size up against them. If they fill a very similar niche into the market as our gyms do, we may want to look at transforming our business model in some way to carve out our own niche. I'd also want to know what type of consumers and customers they target. Are they targeting a similar age range, gender, and demographic that we are, or are they in a different place in the market? And really understanding where we size up against this competitor, how we're viewed by our customers is going to be helpful to understand what actions we can take to really solidify our positioning here. And that leads me into my final bucket of what strategic improvements the gym can make to increase their profitability over time. First thought that I have is improving their marketing efforts. So this could be through digital or physical advertising. So using potentially search engine optimization online so that our gym pops up more when people search for local gyms, using social media advertising, partnering with any influencers to get the brand name out, as well as any physical advertising such as billboards, flyers, etc. Next, seeing if we can optimize our distribution channels in any way. This will help us import new materials for the gym, new weights, improve the equipment that we have, potentially do that in a more efficient manner, which would also cut costs. So on a holistic view, I want to understand what's our profitability, how do we size up against the competition, and what can we do from there. But I think that the first part that I want to look into, since we are really focusing on optimizing profit, is seeing if we do have any existing profit numbers right now for the gyms.
Great. All right. Whew, that was quite a lot. What do you think would be the main drivers or the main factors? If you had only a short time, what would you look at?
Yeah, I think right now the first part that I would want to look into would just be that revenue factor, because lease costs and import costs could be a large factor. But since we are already renting out from certain malls, it's unlikely we could cut down many more costs. So I'd want to look into those revenue levers, potentially understanding how many total members we have, what they're paying in terms of their membership, and seeing if there's any way we can optimize that.
All right. Thank you so much. So, first things first, there were a lot of good thoughts. Okay. So you had a great summary. Oh, my farmer's head. You had a great summary of a lot that there is to consider. And it really showed that you have good business model. What I also loved is that you were customizing the framework. So you didn't just say revenue is the quantity times the price. You actually spoke to the gym that it's a membership fee-based revenue stream, which is really great. That's why we also say use the frameworks for structure always just as a starting point, because what you really want to be able to do is that you want to customize it so that the interviewer sees you really speaking to this specific case. So all of this, I think that went really, really, really well. However, it was too long. And when an interviewer asks you, where do you see the main drivers? What they are saying in a nice way is that you're not specific and succinct enough. In consulting, often it's a good advice that everything you want to say or anything you put on a PowerPoint, you cut it down to 1/3. So you need to learn in your communication to be much more specific and really just say, I think, firstly, secondly, third. And also when you do your structure, what I loved was that you give that brief overview. Then you asked me to go into detail. But then you went into every example into detail. No, don't do that. Give me the criteria and then level 1, the main drivers, then level 2, the sub drivers, and only after the examples. Because if you brainstorm a lot of examples, it's difficult for the interviewer to follow. You're also losing time and you're losing the most important skill, which is prioritization. Because we don't want researchers who look at everything and write lengthy reports at the end. We want consultants who are able to prioritize the main drivers. And that's what you need to focus on a little bit more. And often my candidates are scared because they think, but what if I forget something? Then you just put an other bucket where other things fit in, so that you do mention it, or you say we could also look at ABC would if you're interested in that in more detail. But if you treat everything the same, the interviewer will take a mental note that you don't prioritize well. So take the risk to always look at main drivers. Even the partners in consulting still say that, what are the main drivers here? So please do that. Okay. Then another thing that is really, really important to keep in mind, when you look at the main drivers, you can also do a hypothesis. For example, a gym has a lot of rent, especially if they're in prime locations. So these things are good, but you don't need to know that. You can check with the interviewer though. Would you want to add something to the structure, or is there something you consider important? The interviewer is there to help you, not to work against you. So please do also keep that in mind. Now, last but not least, what is very important with the structure? You said all of these things would be nice to know. So at the end, you have a long list of interesting information. You can get into consulting like that, but that's not really how consultants work. And you actually want the interviewer forever to think like, oh, wow, he thinks like a consultant already. And with that, what I need you to do is to not just say, I want to know this, I want to know this, I want to know this, I want to know this. This is a long laundry things of a list of things to find out, but to say, what am I actually testing? So the more you can move to assertions, and it's not a must, but it makes you a stronger candidate, the better. So instead of saying, I want to understand the competitor, to say, I want to understand which parts of our strategy are best suited to respond to the competitive pressure. Then it's much clearer what we are testing. And whichever structure you use, you can always frame it in the market, because the market trend is always very important. With every case, you want to know, is this a business problem or is this a market problem? If it's a business problem, our client is clearly doing something wrong and we can learn from other businesses in the market. If it's a market problem, everyone has a hard time and we have to be creative. So at the end of the structure, you ask the interviewer, what do you think? Would you like to change that or amend it? Then if they say, I'm good with it, let's go ahead. Then you can walk through your structure. So keep in mind that you form the structure based on the objective and criteria of success. The more you can speak in assertions, the better. Less just what you want to know. Make it as specific as possible, as succinct as possible, and go through the layers first before you jump to examples. Be courageous to prioritize. This is a key consulting skill. You always need to look at the main drivers. And then also make it MECE, meaning mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. Yours was quite MECE. You You could have just added the market and then have another box for everything you don't want to go into detail, but you at least want to mention. All right, then we have the structure. Then I'm back as the interviewer. And we can go ahead. How would you walk through that structure that you've developed?
Yeah. So, as I said, so just running through the framework again, correct, based on the.
Let me go as a coach. No, you don't repeat it. You take notes of the interviewer's feedback and then you just check with the interviewer, okay, so this is how we can work through it. And then you go one after the other. And for each, you ask for specific data if it's available. Don't just ask what data do we have, because then you're asking the interviewer to do your job. You're asking for specific data, whether it's available. And then if it's not, you're making assumptions. If it's available, you work with the data and then you go through step by step. But for now, we can work with the structure you had as long as you add the market considerations.
Great. Okay. So starting with the gym market, the first thing that I want to see if we have data on is the total size of the gym market in the United States, as well as the compounded annual growth rate for any period of time in the future.
Actually, we don't. And also this client is much more interested how any specific franchise can be more profitable. So they would really want to look at the specific franchise and see if we can use that to really look at the break-even point. Would you be fine to start with that?
Yeah, I think that sounds great.
So what I do have for you is a handout with the relevant data that you would need, and I'd like you to take a look and use that to then help us understand the break-even point.
Great. Okay, so it looks like we have a breakdown of different revenues by item. So we have our membership dues, the vending machines, personal training, as well as a breakdown of fixed cost items over a monthly period. So we have rent, equipment, labor, etc. First thing that's really jumping out to me here is seeing how high that equipment cost is. So that may be a concern. Rent being at $6,000 a month is substantial as well. So in order to find that break even point in terms of how many members it's going to take to break even, I guess first thing I want to clarify actually is in terms of finding that break even, we are looking into how many members we need to break even on a specific franchise. Is that correct?
Perfect.
And then in terms of the vending machine and personal training, is that all referring to per person per month on how much they spend on that?
Yeah, so you see monthly revenue item, revenue per person. So
Okay.
it's averaged out.
Okay, perfect. So just to walk you through how I'm thinking about calculating that break-even point, I would want to calculate the total monthly revenue per person by adding up those three line items. I would then want to calculate the total fixed cost per month. And once I have our total fixed cost per month and our revenue per person, I'm going to take the total fixed cost, divide it by the revenue per person per month, and that's going to give me the number of how many people we're going to need to break even and become profitable. Does that sound like a good approach to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So beginning with calculating the revenue per person per month, I'm simply going to add up the membership dues, vending machine, and personal training, which is going to be 40 plus 5 plus 15. So 45 plus 15 is going to give 70, $60 per person per month for the revenue. Now to get that total fixed cost revenue, we have rent, which is $6,000 per month, plus the equipment, which initially we have $144,000 added, 144K, over a 3-year depreciation schedule. So I'm actually just gonna pause right here, seeing that 4,000 per month. So just ignoring that 144,000 figure and doing 4,000 per month depreciation cost for equipment, plus the labor costs, which we have is $3,200 a month, plus the utilities, franchising, and marketing, which add up to a total of 14,000 actually, which I'm just seeing now at the bottom. So wasn't actually quite as necessary to add up all those line items. But given that we have a 14,000 total monthly cost. I'm going to take 14,000 and I'm going to divide it by the $60 per person per month revenue that we have. So $14,000 divided by 70, divided by $60. So this is going to be the same as 1.4 thousand divided by 6. And that number is going to give me around 233, just over 233 members per month. But then because it's a break even figure, so to become profitable, it looks like we're going to need 234 memberships per month per location for each one of these gym franchises. And I just want to stop and contextualize that number a little bit. So thinking about the average population in a gym at once, I would think at a smaller gym, there's going to be no more than maybe 50 people there at a time. With different time fluctuations, I don't think that 234 people is an unreasonable figure. So it does look promising in terms of turning profitability on each one of these locations.
Alarm, alarm. Don't just use and calculate your numbers. You have to sense check them. So every time you calculate, you sense check, do your numbers make sense from what I've given you as the excerpt? And you just double check if it makes sense in relation to what we know about the gym. You did that a little bit, but you already went into the interpretation and analysis. You have to sense check your numbers. So please take a look at the numbers again and see if you can with confidence say that you came up with the correct calculations. It is a must. If you make a wrong calculation in the interview, you can still get and land the job, but only if you catch it yourself. If the interviewer catches it, then it's much harder. So you need to sense check. Even when you're in the consulting company, no one will accept you just doing any calculation that you haven't sense checked, meaning you haven't cross-checked or questioned yourself until you 99.9% sure. Please do that.
Okay, so looking at each one of these items, so $40 membership dues seems somewhat reasonable for the cost for a small gym membership. I know I personally pay a fairly similar amount, as well as utilizing vending machines. So this total monthly cost of $60 does seem fairly reasonable. Because it's a smaller gym, it's possible that we do have some slightly more personalized offerings. So while 60 is on the slightly high side for a gym membership, I do still think that seems reasonable. But I would want to look into, again, if we can shift around those prices to optimize revenue. And then in terms of the annual cost for $14,000 per month, paying $6,000 lease costs per month or $72,000 per year does seem like actually quite cheap for a lease for a building and like a favorable agreement. So this number does seem to make sense, but again, it is on the cheap side. And then in terms of the equipment costs as well, as I mentioned, $144,000 amortized to be around $4,000 per month. Equipment being the largest cost for a gym by a large margin outside of the rent or lease costs. So spending around $14,000 on a monthly basis does seem to make sense to me. But again, I would just want to look into seeing if there's any other ways we can optimize revenue and then to optimize revenue per person to decrease that total number of memberships that we need to break even.
So what you did well is to compare the numbers with what you know about the market, but you also just need to check your calculations because it instills trust in the interviewer. Because sure, this is an easy calculation, but the interviewer wants to know that you think and work like a consultant. A consultant would never just put the number down without quickly checking if they did it correct. So just do that in the case as well. And then I might have misheard you. Just remind me what's the biggest driver of the cost?
Yeah, so right now the biggest driver in our cost is that rent at $6,000 per month with equipment coming in second. However, just sense checking that number, it does seem to be a fairly reasonable number to rent out real estate in different locations. So I would want to see if we can cut down that cost, but I do think that the rent may not be something that we can fix too much.
Okay. Lovely. So let me give you feedback. So I think here you did very well. I love that you looked at the table and you first described what you were seeing. Then you were interpreting the number and already saying, oh, wow, this is the highest. This is quite high. Oh, this is like really a main driver. And for example, other things like franchise is rather low. So always first describe, then interpret, and then look at the analysis, the so what. What does that mean now for the client? Meaning, where can we actually change the cost, like you did at the end to say, can we somehow go down on rent? So this was spot on. This was really great. What I also liked is that you first came up and you set up the equation without jumping into the calculation. This gives me confidence that you're good in logical calculation, logical reasoning, and setting up the equation, which was spot on. I also like that as you were calculating, you were communicating with me. I always say, please don't go silent on the interviewer because it's not just about arriving at the right number. In fact, if you arrive at the right number, and I don't know how you got there, it lowers my trust in you. So if you take me along the calculation and you're telling me what you're calculating, it's always a plus. Well done on that. I gave you feedback on the sense check. Please keep that in mind. You always have to sense check just the numbers. Did you not make a mistake? Are you confident? Cool. Then in relation to what you see here, does it make sense? Or are suddenly the members that you need higher than a total figure that you had, or did you maybe mix up annual and monthly? You will see it from the numbers. In an extreme case, do you get a negative revenue? But just check that because that instills confidence also in the interview. You were spot on with your hypothesis or assumption that 50 people would be there at a given time. I actually had that data. You could have asked me for it, but you were spot on. But remember, you don't need to be spot on with your assumptions as long as you can explain how you logically arrived there, which you also did, which I really, really liked. So all of this was really great. And the way you were already analyzing at the end and coming up with ideas to cut the costs, I think you did very well in this quantitative part. Then we can continue. All right, now that we know that, okay, we can move on and say, now, okay, let's focus on revenue. What would you say are the potential revenue growth opportunities that our client can pursue?
Yes, is it all right with you if I take 30 seconds, create a small structure, and then let you know how I'm thinking about it?
Of course, of
Thank
course.
you.
Taking on quickly my interview ahead, you are allowed to do that. For the initial structure, you can take 90 seconds to 2 minutes. Usually, in between, you can take 30 seconds for any qualitative question that needs structuring, but that you shouldn't ask for more than twice. You can also ask for 30 seconds before you do your summary of your recommendations at the end. And keep in mind, whatever we ask, we're also checking how well you can structure your answer. So don't just rush. Don't brainstorm with me. Always know that I want you to use a structured approach. All right? So it's very good if you use that.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that time. The way that I'm thinking about how we can really drive revenue and look for opportunities for growth, I want to start by looking for ways that we can either increase our revenue per existing customer or ways that we can increase our total number of customers. So first, starting with that revenue per existing customer, there are three different ways that I've come up with to see how we can increase that. So we can increase the average duration of their membership, we can increase the average price that they're paying for their membership, or we can increase the amount that they spend on the amenities, as we saw with the vending machine or the personal training. So in terms of increasing the duration of the membership, one idea that popped into my mind was implementing a grandfather clause. So if we do raise our prices in the future, allowing existing members to keep their membership at an existing price, we could also increase duration of membership through positive experiences at the gym, such as having strong customer services. I know we don't have too many employees at the gym right now. Maybe having someone at the front desk who has a friendly interaction with them would keep them coming back, ensuring that we are keeping our equipment up to date and available so that it's all high quality equipment. They have a good gym experience. So that duration is one part. Looking at price, of course, this is going to depend on the customer's price elasticity, but seeing if we could bump up these gym membership prices slightly without having a big drop back in volume is a way that we could just potentially uh, increase that top line. And then in terms of the amenities, seeing if we could add in any other services. I know we have a vending machine right now, but maybe we could add some other high protein meals or snacks in addition to this nearby, which customers may want to have. Other amenities could include potentially partnering up with a coffee shop nearby. But I think those are some of the ideas I have for revenue per customer. Now, shifting back to how we can increase total number of customers, I think that we could either just simply decrease our price point or increase the value proposition. So, in terms of decreasing price point, I think that this is somewhat self-explanatory. Of course, as I said, it's going to depend on price elasticity, but it's likely that we would bring in more total customers by decreasing price. But that's not really what I want to focus on. What I do want to focus on is ways that we can increase our value proposition. So, I think that increasing value proposition starts with how we communicate to customers. So, increasing our marketing efforts, as I mentioned earlier, through digital and physical channels, increasing that search engine optimization, using social media advertising, really spreading the word out for our gym, potentially hiring a photographer to take professional grade photos of the gyms, post them on websites like Yelp so people can see positive reviews. It looks like a strong gym for them to have. And then another way is actually just increasing the quality of the gym itself. So as I said, equipment, this could also include expanding into slightly other types of exercise. I know a trends I've noticed are people shifting away from pure weightlifting, moving into cross training, running, potentially training martial arts. So we could increase our value proposition by, say, having a martial arts studio section of the gym and getting a larger customer base to come in. So that's a high level overview of what I want to look into. But I think the main thing that I would prioritize is potentially seeing if we have a pricing breakdown of our membership offerings and seeing if there's any way that we can really create a strong pricing scheme to get more customers to come and return.
Okay, great. All right. So, first things first, it was really good that you did a structure. Then you also had really great ideas. I also love that you split it by price and quantity. But remember to be messy. So you could have added another category, and that would have allowed you to see that we could, for example, have food and beverages in the gym, or we could do more personal training or tanning or any solarium offers. So when you look at that, this is actually a main factor that can quickly drive up revenue and profitability of a gym. So forgetting that is really sad. So make sure you always messy, you add the other category, and then things will come up. How else you can test how well you were in your structure and your brainstorming is always were you messy, were you properly structured, were you specific to the point, and then also towards the end, make sure what you would have to see is was it more like a textbook? Or did you have specific ideas? So make sure you sound less like a textbook. If someone tells me we need to start a social media advertisement, everyone knows that. Rather say we need a specific voucher to bring along a friend. So please keep that in mind. The more specific you are, the better. Okay? Thank you so much. These were great ideas. Then how would you go about summarizing this case for our client?
Yeah, absolutely. So, despite seeing robust growth in our gym franchises due to heightened competition, we've looked for ways to increase the company's competitive positioning and find ways for you to stay profitable. Upon our analysis, we found out that you will need 234 members per gym franchise per month in order to break even and stay profitable. We believe that this is a very feasible target for you to hit and that profitability should be ensuing in the following time frame. However, in order to solidify your competitive positioning, we encourage you to strongly look at both your pricing offerings and potentially implementing a tier-based pricing system in order to retain a higher amount of customers, as well as looking into different amenities and other additional offerings which you can provide, whether that be food and beverage, additional vending machine items or looking into other offerings in the gym, such as martial arts. Some potential risks to these advancements are seeing if they bump up our costs too high or that if we're not effectively able to leverage our existing supply chain and distribution to fund these offerings. However, as I said before, we strongly urge you to look into both your pricing system and your additional offerings in order to stay competitive in this market.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Good. Let me put on my coach hat. Please start with the summary top down. You always have to talk to us that if we only listen for 30 seconds and then we get distracted because our attention span is short and so is the attention span of CEOs, we already got the most important message. Your build up before you told me what to do was quite long. By that time, I might have already thought about my dinner. Please remember that we do it top down. If you want to have a situation complication objective at the beginning before you give your recommendation, make sure you keep it super brief. If you can keep it to less than 15 seconds, that's better. Please make sure you lead with the recommendation and then you back that up. And the main recommendation is here what to do to increase profitability, not to get a sense of confidence in the members, but really lead with that. So this is something you can definitely take away. Otherwise, I think you recapped it very well. You also had a good way of speaking. You didn't get stuck. So I think that was great in terms of communication. One thing I don't understand, but this is how I'm going to close this case as Juliane. If I'm your client or your interviewer, I don't want to get a beautiful recommendation and you tell me afterwards all of what can go wrong. Then I'm like, okay, then should I do this now or not? If you end with the risks, I never understand. And I always say to my candidates, I don't know where you get this from. This is really confusing. Give a few ideas on mitigating measures or give some ideas for this risk. I would look into ABC, or here we can guide you to solve for this and this. Give me confidence that you'll walk me through implementing these recommendations despite the risk. Don't throw the risks in my face as the last thing you tell me. Please, that is just something for my personal preference. Thank you so much. This brings us to the end of the case. If I was the interviewer, I would say, thank you so much, Josh. I'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you so much, Julie. I really enjoyed this.
Wonderful. Thanks both. Yeah, Josh, any kind of final questions that you have for Juliane before we turn over to some audience Q&A?
Let's see. I think just maybe going back to the framework. After I presented the framework and went through it, would you have essentially wanted me to go down each one of those main buckets, told you the primary issue that I would want to look into, and then you would sort of confirm or deny if that's the right place to go with the case?
No, you can do that at the end after you've presented everything. So
Okay.
I loved how you do it, quick summary in the beginning, and then go through the different layers, and then at the end, check in again with the interviewer.
Yeah. Okay. Great. I don't think I
Mm-hmm.
have any other questions. I think all that feedback was super helpful, and definitely clear some things up for me.
Mm-hmm. Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you so much, Josh. Appreciate you coming on doing this in front of 300 people live. That's not the easiest thing. So cheers to you, and thank you so much, Juliane, for the great demonstration. Love the hat. I feel like you use a different hat every time. So keeping it fresh.
I do. This one was given to me by a salesperson at the traffic lights in South Africa, and he charmed me so much, and then I had to buy it.
That's awesome. I love it. Well, we got 5 minutes here to answer some audience questions. So, uh, type your questions in the chat. Love to hear them. Whether it's something specifically about today's case or it's about case interviews more broadly. Juliane is here for the next couple of minutes, so take advantage of that. So the chat is open right now. Juliane,
Yes.
would you pass Josh on to
Yes, I
round
would
two?
pass him. Yes. I'd pass him. Well done, Josh. Yeah. Oh, one thing I also liked is when you said, "Oh, I didn't see the total." That like just that moment of humility, curiously growing and not defending yourself. I love that in candidates. I think the best way is to be curious and focus on the work and your growth, not wanting to be shining. No one wants an expert. We don't want to hire experts. We want to hire team members who want to learn and grow with us. So that was great. Okay. Sanity check the numbers. Does that mean you have to check every number and calculation? Yeah, the big ones you should. Yeah, but if you do it at the end and you look overall, that still works. And always just look at a pure number basis, but also look that it makes sense with the overarching information that you've received. It's just bad practice, and especially in an interview, you might be nervous and make wrong calculations. So it helps you to avoid that. Question: What would the suggestion be in the case? Would it be for us to recommend the client a diagnostic phase to identify? No, we don't recommend diagnostic phases. We really go with what is our first answer at Bain. We call it A1. Then we can always refine it later. But ideally, you would have given three specific interventions. What exactly can they do tomorrow to increase their profitability? Okay, which other questions? When you say synergy check, we did already have that. If mental math isn't your strong point, what other skills can you to compensate? Whew, this is a hard question. You can't compensate in consulting, and that's why it's top of the pyramid recruiting. You really need to make sure that you nail it all down. And this is not just in the interview, this is in the entire career. There's no way you can compensate your quantitative part by being good at qualitative and be promoted to manager. You need to be holistic, well-rounded. So it's not undoable. The maths in the case is really grade 7. Like just go and repeat it. Maths is about repetition, 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 and structuring it well so you can learn it. Rather get coaches to help you. All right. Could I repeat how to structure our framework drivers and how to incorporate examples without rambling and going too long? It's really top down. Objective criteria of success. First level, what are the main drivers? Next level, what are the three buckets? And I think we've shared earlier in the chat that we recommend four branches and then three sub branches each. And then later, if you give examples, you would first give the structure like that and then go into examples later. But ask the interviewer also if they want examples. Otherwise, you start rambling. Okay. The other questions I think you've answered, hey?
Yeah. Let me just do something really quick. Let me pull up our this case in the case library and pull up a um
I
what our
will
4
just
by
have
3
to
structure looks
leave
like.
in time. Thank you so much, everyone. You're in good hands.
Great. Thank you so much, Julianne. Appreciate you. I'll release you. I'll stay on for another 1 minute just to show everybody that. But we appreciate you. We'll send out some links to Julianne's calendar so you can work with her, book a one-on-one coaching session. Or if you're one of our black belts or super preppers, you have access to her calendar right now. So you can go ahead and do that at any time. So thank you so much, Julianne. Okay, here, let me quickly share my screen. All right, so right here, what I'm sharing is the expert structure example from this case, this franchising gyms case. And we recommend a 4 by 3 structure. And just what that means is you get 4 categories, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you get 3 data points underneath each. Your data points should be measurable. They should be able to be quantified. So not concepts, but actually like data. So something that you can like look at research to help you get to the answer for the case. So this is just an example of what you get with with the case library. It's how we teach in our university workshops, practice with a 4 by 3 structure. And then if you freak out in the case and only do a 3 by 3 or a 3 by 2, like you'll still have a pretty good structure, but practicing with a 4 by 3 is the way to go. Love it. I see somebody mentioning mental math drills. Love that. Oh, actually, that was Josh. Thanks, Josh. We've also got a ton of math drills on our site for free. We'll link to that. We'll link to that here in the chat. So we've got free drills, and then we've got even more drills. Oh, thank Katie. Appreciate that. And then we've got more drills. Like we've got video drills, if you're a student at a partner school or if you're a black belt or a super prepper. So we have like videos where it's like Jenny and Ray reading out a prompt, and then there's a timer on screen timing you through the different parts of the case or the math problem. Then you speak out your answer. So just great ways for you to build those reps with math. Love it. Demetrius is asking, what do you believe is the best way to stand out in order to even get the interview in the first place? A couple of things. Your resume needs to be dialed in. You need to network. Networking is one of the most underrated parts of the process. You won't get to an interview without networking. So make sure you do that. Just reach out if you're not sure exactly what that looks like. We can give you some specific resources and guidance. Last question I'll address here is someone is asking how many cases Juliane practiced with. And I'll just tell you, we surveyed our community, folks who got offers, and the average number of cases that they practiced with, like folks who got offers, is 22 before they got to their first round interview. So 22 cases. This is not a magic number, but it just goes to show that you're not going to get in with just doing one case or six, right? Some people can get by on 10, but right? The kind of average is in that 22 range. So that gives you a little bit of something to shoot for. So I'll leave this screen up here for just 1 second longer. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking around. Like I said, if you are not sure if you're a student if your school is a partner of Management Consulted giving you access to a ton of our resources, just email us. The email is university@managementconsulted.com, and that is in the chat here. So please reach out. Josh, I don't know if you got time, but Catherine's got a good question for you here in the chat.
Yeah, happy to answer that. Let's see.
What was your greatest lesson learned from this?
I think it's hard to say because there were so many good things that were pointed out. I think with casing, every time you case, you realize different mistakes that you do. And it's really hard in the live case not to just trip up and forget certain things. Like, for example, even though I've done a lot of cases, I just forgot in the beginning to recap it. But I think the more reps you do and the more practice you do, the more subconsciously you just sort of start doing the right things and those best practices. So this, I don't know how specific this is to this case. I hadn't cased in a little while before this, so I think I was a little bit rusty. But I think it really just comes down to practicing, and then every time you practice, really take specific notes on the feedback, and then you just keep iterating as you do more and more cases. And then once you get the same feedback a couple times, you tend to just pick up on that and not make the mistakes again. So I think the biggest lesson here is every time you case, like really, really figure out what you did wrong and what the feedback was, and then try your best not to do that. And the more times you do that, I think you'll get better at a very rapid rate.
Thanks for sharing, Josh. Super insightful. All right, folks, we are going to let you go here. I'm going to answer this last question from Chris. When you practice these cases, are you practicing alone? The answer is, well, you can do whatever you want to. Chris. You can do whatever you want to. But if you, those 22 cases that I was talking about a minute ago, the ones that got offers, those were like out loud with a human being partner. And so that is definitely what we recommend. It's what we do with our clients. So case interviews are such a kind of a unique situation and environment. And so doing this just on your own, like you're bound to build like bad habits and those are hard to break. And so working with partners, ideally if you can get a few sessions with like a professional, like either a consultant or like a career coach or like an expert coach, like we have a Management Consulted, like that just helps you like open your eyes to those blind spots and kind of close your weaknesses. Wonderful. Okay, folks, thank you so much. We do these cases every month, so we'll see you next month on November. I think it's November 5th is our next one. We've got a BCG case. Just go to Management Consulted. You'll see the events tab at the top and register for that one. In addition, we've got a ton of amazing events coming up over the next 6 weeks, and you'll see all those on the website. Appreciate you. We're here for you, supporting you. Reach out if we can do anything for you. We've got resources. We've got answers to questions. We've guided over 15,000 people into consulting, and we'd love to help guide you as well. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.